Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Weyandt, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Great Tech Group, where we model the future of construction innovation and the digital transformation adventure of this a great industry. This episode is part of Prefab Unfiltered, recorded live at Advancing Prefabrication. There's a lot of talk right now about scaling prefabrication, AI, data centers, and modular construction. But underneath all of it, the real question is this: how do we actually connect BIM, prefab, and the field in a way that works? Because a model that cannot be built is just theory. Today's conversation dives into that exact gap. Today, I'm joined by Jared Sutliff, who brings a unique perspective to the prefab conversation. With a background in multimedia design and 3D modeling, he transitioned into BIM, VDC, and electrical subcontracting, eventually co-founding BIM Technology Management. His work sits right at the intersection of modeling, constructability, and field execution. This is a practical, boots-on-the-ground conversation about making prefab repeatable, scalable, and buildable. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast. We are recording live at Advancing Prefabrication here in Dallas. Welcome to the show, Jared. Thanks for taking the time and coming on.
Thanks, Todd. Really appreciate you having me on the show here today, and really excited to talk more about the conference, what's going on in the industry, and the other great things that we have going on.
Yeah. So let's start with how you got into the industry and what brings you to Advancing Prefab.
Sure. Well, I'll give you the nickel tour because I could talk about this. You know, the Midwest goodbye is a big part of who I am as a person growing up in the Midwest. But I started off and I got a degree as a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Multimedia Design, focusing on 3D modeling and animation. Okay. And through that, I started my career in Milwaukee, Gilbane Building Company, doing 3D site logistics for presentations and proposals. Then that got me into BIM and VDC, and then I transitioned into the electrical subcontracting realm, and then that's where I learned modeling, coordination, clash detection, engineering, and that's what really kicked off my love for modeling, coordination, prefabrication, all of those elements, and then thus led me to my business partner, Jeff Drews, and how we started BIM Technology Management.
Yeah, nice. And where did you learn your sense of style? Because I love a good bow tie, and I'm jealous that I don't have my bow tie on. I went to school in South Carolina, so excellent. I landed the bow ties.
Yeah. Well, it's all been a part of just kind of my style. You know, sometimes I'll dress up, sometimes I'm a lot more casual, but I also like, a good fitting suit, and bow ties are a lot of fun. Like Chris Kimball from America's Test Kitchen and now Milk Street. I really enjoyed that style because he always had it, and just kind of that proper, fresh. And then I also like doing a lot of dress up, like I am today.
Ooh, the suspenders too.
I love suspenders. Yeah, the boat, to see the inside of the jacket. That's right. And what better way to promote 100% US-based team like us? Let's do it. Let's do it on the down low, real super subtle, right? For subtle.
I love it.
But yeah, and then I also am big into like costumes and traditional garb. I've got a pair of lederhosen. I've got a kilt that my mom and I sewed together. Like dressing up at events and stuff like this is just kind of second nature to me.
Yeah.
One of my favorite costumes that started me growing out my hair and like the bow tie and the suit is I dressed up as Sirius Black for Halloween 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I got the look down, found a long petticoat that was like the green from the movie. And I had a shirt, a button down, and then I bought a vest and a pocket watch and all that and a wig. And I had a lot of people that were just like, holy cow, that is a fantastic costume. I carved my own wand based off of some pictures I found online for his specific style, like everything, and stained it and the whole 9 yards. And so it just kind of fits, and it makes people like, okay, you're weird, but I'm kind of interested in talking to you. So let's have a conversation.
Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. Sirius Black is probably my favorite character in all of Harry Potter. So
yeah. And like I said, especially I had a number of people as we were going out, like, oh my God, is that your hair? And yeah, that's my real hair. Wow, that looks so great. You look just like him. And I'm going, you don't know it's a wig, but yeah, it looks great. It looks great. So
That's awesome. Well, back to advancing prefab.
Yeah.
Any big takeaways so far from the day one of the conference here?
I would say the biggest takeaway, and of course, this is talking points for everything, like AEC TechCon last year, advancing electrical, advancing mechanical plumbing, all of it is AI, 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 AI. Now, data centers, these data centers are popping up all over the place. One of the stats I heard at an executive summit was that data centers right now, this was last year, so 25, it was something like $300 billion. And then by the projection is by 2035, it's going to be $1.3 trillion in construction value. So not only is it the construction value, it's what does it do for companies? How can you make it work to your advantage? Does it give you something over the competition? If you don't use it right, you get garbage output. If you don't have the right data, it's garbage inputs. How can you utilize it to your advantage and gain some leverage? And how can you do things smarter, faster, more efficient?
Yeah. So with that kind of rapid adoption into design or data centers, how does that change the industry?
Well, it changes the industry because things are constantly moving at a more and more advanced lightning pace. So how do we deal with material procurement? How do we deal with installing? How do we deal with skilled trades? What does that mean for the entire industry, from mining the raw materials? How does that all flow? How can we make it faster, 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 faster? The use of AI has been kind of amazing. Some people use it for really stupid things, which is unfortunate because you're just kind of wasting time and effort and energy. For those that do actually utilize it to help foster new ideas, get creative, but then still learn, have that in your memory bank. Because if you always go, how do I do this? And then you do it, but you never learn that. What happens in the event of an ice storm, which affected advancing prefab amongst, however many other million people, and then now you don't have access to that to tell you how to do things. So there's a lot of varying avenues and things that I am curious about and looking towards, because with it, it's amazing. Without it, are you losing your identity? Do you know how to do things? Can you critically think on your own without it? So it's a really interesting challenge in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a total double-edged sword.
Right.
I love that. Are you learning from it and not just relying on it to do all the basic needs? Because you hear the easy answer is that it's just going to do all the mundane tasks that we don't want to do, and that's great. And I think that that's true, and that will serve its purpose. But we still need to, to use the cliche of go touch grass. We need to be able to physically and practically do it as well too, and
absolutely
let the machine run it, but be able to put the pedal to the metal.
Right.
So one of the questions with advancing prefab is, a couple years ago, it was, hey, is this possible? How do we scale it? What does that look like? I don't think that question is around really anymore. The question is more like, how do we make it more repeatable? How do we scale it? How do we bring it to that next kind of critical mass? How have you seen that shift practically?
So I've seen that shift where, smaller firms are utilizing, say, vendor partners. So utilizing a material supplier that already has some prefab assemblies done up so that you can just buy it, where you don't have to have a CW or, somebody, an apprentice making those boxes in the field or in the truck or wherever. And so you can streamline that a lot more. And then now that can integrate into accounting and estimating and all of those kind of things. So having all of those capabilities in-house for all of it is definitely changed. And in my experience with the electrical sub before starting BIM TM, is that we used to try and do it all. We used to try and model everything for fabrication, and then try it on a project. Oh, well, shit, that didn't work. This didn't work. How does that work? And then learn that, oh, we don't have to do it all. So let's make these assemblies, have these families together that Is all we have to do is input the right kind of information that we can then extract for this particular build. So it really changed that avenue. And I'm not overly familiar with the mechanical plumbing side, but I think a lot of that is happening in that realm as well. So utilizing the technology that's available and how we can bridge a lot of those gaps, I think, is making the scalability work, but then relying on other vendor partners to take on some of the mundane, almost using, like you said, with AI to take some of the dumb out of what we're doing day to day.
What are some of the early indicators that you look for when you're going in to examine a company's workflow and say, is this prefab process ready?
Mhm.
What are some of those early indicators to see, yeah, they're ready to go, let's scale it up?
That's a really good question. I would say some of the indicators are they understand how it's working. Do they understand the direction they want to go? Because if you don't have like a 5-year end goal and you're just like, I need prefab. Okay, well, what are you ultimately trying to do with it? Is it just strictly for margin, or are you trying to do it where you can integrate it with estimating, integrate it into BIM, prefab, installation, facility management? So that's one of the big things that we ask is, what are you really trying to get out of it before we jump in and start a system? The other thing is understanding what their current capabilities are as well. If they only have, say 1,000 square feet for a shop, well, obviously we're not going to be building 1,000 linear feet racks to try and have them do some underground. So the size of their current operations, what it is they're trying to do, and then even getting into the technology side as well. What are you doing from a BIM standpoint? How are you integrating this information into the process all the way through? And then once we have that information and we can talk to them, then we'll start developing a plan. Okay, you're not using Revit. Okay, that's a big problem. However, there are other tools that you can utilize, like with Bluebeam and the tool chest, where you can at least get counts of specific types of devices. Well, now you know you need a 4 and 11 box with a 1.25 mud ring for this one. Your data is this type of box. You can also include stubs for those as well. So then now you can start getting counts of how many 1-inch 90 stubs do you need? How many 4 and 11s do you need? How many regular four squares? Do you need any shallows? How is that all working? What types of devices? So it really depends on where they're at and how we can facilitate that. We're in the Revit space and the custom families and that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of ways that you can integrate depending on where you're at in the process.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the building blocks that a company needs to think about, maybe even outside of the technology, in order for the successful routing of a new workflow?
Well, buy-in from management.
Yeah.
Buy-in from the field team, buy-in from the technology team. Because if you have owners and managers pushing prefab, you might get foremen who will fudge the numbers. I was trying to say that in a more PC way, but where they'll adjust the numbers to make it look like they're actually implementing more prefab than they are, because they don't want to. Oh, you're taking my job away from us. Well, no, we're not. We're just another tool. No different than, if Milwaukee's got a new rod cutter or a pipe bender or anything like that. If you don't know how to use the tool, it's going to be a waste of money and it's just going to sit there. BIM and the translation of information is very similar to that. You're not going to use a hammer to cut conduit, right? Understanding BIM as a tool, how you can integrate it and how you can show the value to the field team to get buy-in from them. They'll drive the change up the chain of command. Because then if they're saying, hey, my PM, my supers, we're doing it this way, they're going to be like, oh yeah, cool. That's what we want you to do anyways. And then, that helps with ROI, that helps with margins, helps with composite rate for the field team, the whole 9 yards. But not having their buy-in, you're just fighting it the whole way. And yeah, you can try and force it down their throat and have prefab racks come out on site, but if they don't like it, they'll disassemble it and reuse it, or just throw it in the dumpster and build it themselves anyways.
Right. Yeah. I push back a lot on when people say that the field doesn't embrace change or whatever. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that they embrace bad change. They embrace, bad communication to them. But
Yes.
when you explain it to them and they get it and they're bought in and they're part of the process, they're some of the most strongest advocates for adoption, like, really demanding it.
Absolutely.
And they'll change pretty quick if it makes sense. But you got to show it and make it make sense.
Right. Yep.
That's where people miss it.
And proving that value, and the easiest way is to get them involved early. I mean, any of us, if somebody comes in at the 11th hour and says, no, you have to change everything that you're doing right now to accommodate what I want you to do. And be like, no, screw you. I'm not doing that. Right. And the field team is the same way. And one of the things that I did when we were at the electrical contractor level is, as soon as I got into the project, I called the foreman right away. And it was like, hey, I'm going to be working on this project. I'm an artist. So I want you to help me understand what we're doing here, why it's important. And then that way I can show you how it can connect into what you're actually trying to do. Show it to your JWs, your CWs, your apprentices, and we can go from there and build upon it. And the other thing too is, if it's somebody who's totally against it, all right, start with something super small, in-wall rough. We can do, hey, if you've got 20 rooms, we'll do what we do on 10 of them. You guys do what you do on 10 of them, and we'll compare numbers at the end. And then that way they can build the value. They can see that I can have one journeyman overseeing, say 5 CWs, and we got these 10 rooms knocked out in 7 hours. Where the other time, the other 10 rooms, I had to have 3 JWs, an apprentice, and 2 CWs. And then they can actually see that value and understand. Get them involved early, get them to be that advocate for you, be that buy-in, show that value to them early on.
So I think you're talking about it right there, but the data quality is a massive problem in the industry. The BIM team will design something, they put it up there and they're like, oh, this is great. And then the shop and the field get it and they're like, this is crap. I can't use this. I'm going to redo it. So how do you get all those teams aligned on the same page so that what is in the BIM model is actually able to be built by the shop and field?
There's a couple of different schools of thought on that. And some of the most realistic avenues for that is, once again, get the field team involved early, bring them into the office, or have your technicians or whoever's the project lead on that job go out to the site, sit down with the foreman, know the build. Better yet, teach somebody who knows the construction side, the constructability of side. Teach them the software. They've been doing this for years. They know what they need to do. Software, I mean, it's like downloading the game and learning the game. Once you get some of the basic things out, then you can model, you can coordinate, but you're modeling and coordinating with constructability and access in mind, not somebody who can make this amazingly clash-free model that you can't build. So, and the other thing too is, or from a technician standpoint and a PM field side, invite them into the field, have them see the material, have them see the installation process, because then they can start wrapping their head around, oh, that's why this didn't work. Now I need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of cross-pollination and bringing in the real-world insights is critical, because if you're just in the model the whole time, then you're living in the world of theory, and it great. You're like, well, everything's checked off. There's nothing wrong. There's no clash. Yes, but it's somebody can look at it really quick that's been doing it for 20 years.
Right.
Like, you're an idiot. It's clearly this is the problem here, and you just don't even see it. So it's not that there's an issue necessarily on the other side. It's just the kind of the lived experience, so to speak, important there.
And the other thing too is, and the onus isn't all on the field. It isn't all on the BIM side. It isn't all on the management side. It's, if there is an issue in the field, it needs to be addressed with the BIM team, especially, and this is just one thing in particular, if you're doing a high rise, right? And floors, 7 through 20 are all the exact same. don't let the material get to floor 12 before you say, well, all of this shit was screwed up. Like, we needed to change this. No, but like, what are we doing? We could have gotten that fixed by the material coming up out on 7. So now we've got these 5 floors that you've been making changes to every single time. So if you, and the field doesn't know what they don't know, the BIM team doesn't know what they don't know. So that's where, and it's hard. Everybody, a lot of people are
back to communication,
instant messaging. That's the big thing. Pick up the phone. That's the easiest way to build that rapport, develop that rapport, and get clarity on the questions you have. Do a screen share so you're looking at the same thing when you're asking the questions. Real-time feedback is so critical to make that connection from BIM to prefab to field installation to success utilizing the information in BIM and that tool to the ways that actually work for you and your company.
Yeah, makes sense. So broadening out to some of the macro trends coming in prefab right now, is there a conversation that you think people should be having that we are not having and we're missing?
Jeez. I don't know if I have an answer for you right now, because it seems like there could be a lot, but I think maybe the one that would come to mind was a conversation that I had at the AEC TechCon last year, was from a former director of a NICA chapter. And he's like, okay, this is fantastic. All of these data centers, all these union contractors are getting these not deferred payments, but like the incentive pay for all the field team. And okay, so that's great. They're getting all these extra big payments and stuff. But what about the other clients that you have? What about the hospitals, the warehouses, the manufacturing facilities? Because all of a sudden now their labor composite rate's going up by $15, $20 an hour. Okay, well, they're not going to want to pay that. So from a union labor versus non-union labor perspective, the non-union labor is going to be able to pick up all of that work because their rates are lower. And then when eventually the data center bubble bursts, or we're at capacity, or the technology, quantum computing, whatever it is, they don't need all of that square footage. Now you're going to have to tell your guys, sorry, we need to give you a pay cut. Like, how is that going to affect you, your business, your clients, your employees? So that's something that, at least in my perspective, that we really need to be cognizant of and have an understanding of the long-term impact of what all of this explosive growth in the technology data center side of things is going.
Yeah, makes sense. So putting the crystal ball on the table, looking out kind of a 3 to 5 year time frame, what is the big trend that's going to be kind of dominating the conversation?
Oh boy, I would say maybe, and modular is continuing to grow. I think modular is going to be even a larger topic between hospitals, between manufacturing, all of these kind of things, where if we can integrate more prefabrication of all of the MEP systems into a plug and play, kind of like I guess lack of a better description would be an IKEA-esque type of build. I think that is something that's going to really be more on the forefront of the design side from architectural structural MEPs, where we can build the structures that are needed to fit the bill in a much more condensed time frame. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean costs are going to go down, because there's a lot of pre-planning and all of that goes into it. But then, I mean, for a lot of owners and that kind of stuff, not missing your schedule deadlines is critical to their operations. Every day they're down, they're losing X amount of dollars. So if we can make sure that they're up on schedule or even ahead of time because of all that pre-planning and processing and building, not in the elements, I think that is something that's going to increase quite drastically that may not be being talked about right now.
If it goes more IKEA, hopefully it's better.
Better.
A little PTSD from my last trying to build a cabinet from IKEA that was just a trade wreck.
Yeah. Well, did you take pictures and were you doing an audio blog of it as you were doing it?
No, I had to, just shut everybody out of the room. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
There was no labels on it. And so they were like, match part A with part B. And I was like, I don't know what part A is. So you had to like go by the picture and be like, this is kind of like that. If it's
right.
It was
right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I won't go down that rabbit trail right now. It's a bit triggering.
Yep. So what you're saying is having a proper labeling and a way to track A and B and C together is mildly important. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know.
Right. Yeah. Right. Labels.
Yeah.
Is it big?
Right. For sure.
Yeah. Well, so we start to kind of wrap up. A couple of rapid fire questions for you. First, what is the phrase modeling the future? What does that mean and look like to you?
Oh boy, modeling the future. I think that is continuing to integrate design into clash detection coordination, subcontractors, prefab, because we see it all the time still is you've got your design phase, then you've got your bid phase, and then your subcontractor gets in and does this stuff. And then it goes into BIM prefab. Like the contractor BIM prefab is definitely way more advanced and more connected together than it used to be. But from the design aspect and the engineering aspect to the subcontractor, there still seems to be a big disconnect there. And I think one way to kind of help remedy that is having engineers understand the constructability side, or have a vendor partner that is working with you from 25% DDs through IFC CD issuance, because then you're understanding, okay, for this size system, it's this type of unit that needs to get procured, that's these dimensions and these specific requirements, instead of, hey, you need an X by Y by Z sized unit. And then the supplier's like, well, we can't do that. And then now it has to get re-engineered. Having somehow connecting the engineers and the subcontractors and the suppliers more integrated is going to be huge in my perspective, because then now you're breaking down those individual silos, you're developing better partnerships and those kind of things that are going to really streamline modeling of the future.
Yeah, I like it. How do people connect with you and learn more about BIM TM?
So there's a couple of ways. We've got obviously our webpage, bimtm.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We're all specifically on the electrical side. I'll teach BIM within Revit for electrical subs, not walls, windows, doors. Subs don't care about that, like actual things that mean stuff to the electrical. And then we've also got some fun stuff. RFI Outfitters is another thing that we do, and it's branded merch and employee engagement, new employee hire packages, gift packages, all of those kind of things. We can do custom designed, custom branded pieces that people actually want to wear that are fun to utilize. And for those that are only listening, you won't be able to see this, but we've got like sticker packs, bumper stickers, like bippity boppity BIM, and my favorite,
with the great fairy.
Oh yeah, with the great fairy
and fairy.
and for anybody out there, if you've met me or know me, I don't mind dressing up. So you may or may not see something like that in the future. Cough, cough, wink, wink.
Is this modeled after you then?
I mean, clearly the stick figure is handsome as hell. So obviously that's me, not anybody else. But yeah, my favorite one here, especially, was when I was in the meat of coordination. BIM coordination is like Tetris, but with more crying. And then at Advancing Prefab, if you're here, stop by booth 23, which I know that doesn't help anybody if this doesn't go out, but we've got the RFI Outfitters barely coordinated t-shirts that we're giving away here as well. So yeah, so that's a little bit of a sales plug for myself and our vendor partners here, but
that's awesome. This is good stuff. Thanks for showing them off. So final question for you. If I could give you all construction power, you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing, what would you pick to innovate?
Boy, maybe we should have talked about this an hour ago when I talked to you originally. Oh, geez. I guess it may not really be the construction end of it, but I would say the communication side. You know, we are a society of text messaging, Teams messages, LinkedIn messages, but pick up the phone, call somebody directly, reach out to people that you know in the industry who are experts in what they do in their field, because you can build that rapport, but then you're also learning from somebody else's experience. You're leveraging their lessons learned to improve yourself, your company, your team, whatever it is. Or come to events like Advancing Prefab. That face-to-face connections with those people are definitely life-changing. You never know who you're going to meet, and if they don't directly correlate to your industry, they know somebody that does and can really make some great things happen within our industries. I mean, kind of an answer, kind of not an answer, but
Massive. That communication piece is
right,
huge.
Right. And I know I'm definitely guilty of it as, oh God, I'll just send them a message. No, you just, hey, I'm struggling with this. What's your perspective on it? How can we build this better?
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time and joining the show today.
Yeah, really appreciate being on the podcast.
And now it's time for my Todd takes from this episode. First take. A model is only valuable if it can be built. BIM and VDC have matured significantly, but a highly detailed model that does not translate cleanly to the field is just digital theory. Prefab success depends on constructability. That means early collaboration between designers, subcontractors, and field teams. It means modeling with installation in mind, not just coordination. The closer we align modeling decisions with real job site constraints, the fewer surprises we face downstream. Buildable models drive scalable prefabrication. Second take. Prefabrication requires cultural buy-in, not just technology. AI tools, advanced modeling platforms, and prefab workflows are accelerating. But none of it works without alignment across management and the field. If leadership pushes prefab, but the crews installing it are not part of the process, friction shows up quickly. Success requires communication, shared ownership, and clarity around why the strategy matters. Prefab is not a software rollout. It's a cultural shift. And finally, early collaboration prevents repeated mistakes. One of the strongest themes in this conversation is that the cost of poor coordination compounds quickly. In repetitive environments like data centers, small modeling mistakes can replicate across floors and facilities. When engineers, subcontractors, suppliers, and VDC teams align early, lessons are captured and applied before they scale. When they do not, inefficiencies multiply. Prefabrication rewards discipline and proactive communication. It penalizes assumptions. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit our sponsor, Great Tech Group, at greattech.com. You can listen to this podcast anytime by simply going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out our website, bridgingthegappod.com. As always, I'm Todd Weyandt, thanking you for joining the conversation to model the future on the Bridging the Gap podcast. Keep innovating.